Chase Young's 2024 season, that was better than most people think, but pause for effect. But he's got to bring a whole lot more to the table in 2025. I think everyone knows it, including Chase Young. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. Okay, so what we're really talking about here is his analytical numbers, in particular, two analytic measurements, pressure rate and win rate, versus actually making plays, impactful plays. Edge rusher, you're pretty much talking about sacks. I want to be careful how I say this because I am not one of those people that's 100% all in analytics, nor am I one of those people that 100% hate it. I think it's a very useful tool if used correctly in the right way. Um, I think for the most part, it can kind of give you some indications I think they kind of like to say like the hidden numbers. Yeah, maybe. But I think it's a good indication more of, okay, there's something to build on there. There's something there. There's showing the quote unquote when you say a player's showing flashes, kind of kind of almost defining what those flashes are a little bit, kind of putting it into some context. Now, it's not always, and I think this is where the it gets a little iffy. Analytics tries to present itself as a hard numeric number, but there's still some. I think they eliminate a lot of it, but I think there's still a little subjectivity in there when they're compiling the data. So just want to say that out front. Also, the data that's compiled here that we're going to be talking about, um, I basically had Grok run for the information on this to help me set it up. And Grok tracked data sources by PFF, Next Gen Stats, and Sports Info Solutions. So kind of where they're pulling the numbers from. And I think the subjectivity, just for example, if you're going to talk about win rate, and we'll get into that specifically, but in a nutshell, it's who wins? The defender? Did he beat the offensive lineman trying to block him? Most of the time, you can clearly see, yeah, that was definitely a win for the defender, or that was definitely a loss by the defender. He did nothing and got stonewalled. But you're always going to have some gray area, a couple of plays in between where you're like, don't really know which way to call it. Those are the ones depend on how which way it's called affects these numbers. But I think it's a significantly small number, but I did want to mention it. Now, overall, what we're talking about here, let's start off with sacks because to me, that is still one of the, if not the most important number for an edge defender in the sense of, or a pass rusher in general, even if it's coming from the interior, is that's the impact number. You got to get the quarterback on the ground, right? That's the ultimate goal of what you're trying to do here. It's not the only goal, it's the ultimate goal. The other stuff that you're talking about is like pressure rate. Okay. So, what exactly is a pressure rate? Well, it's literally just the total number of pressures divided by the total pass rush snaps that you had, multiply it by 100, you get a percentage. Pressures generally include sacks, hits when you hit the quarterback right as or right after he threw the ball, hurries. That hurries could be one of those, like we said, some of them may be you don't call it a hurry and actually was, or vice versa. So, again, I don't think it's going to huge numbers that's going to skew any of this information, but it's something to keep in mind. And they normally have a minimal threshold for snaps. Like they're not going to grade you if you out there 1 or 2 plays a game, basically for 5 games, and that's it. And they have no way to account for stuff like a double team or a scheme change or anything along those lines that kind of may affect it. So I think it's important to mention that. But when you're looking at pressure rates, the top 10 last year in 2024 under this formula, and kind of try to identify what defines a pressure. Miles Garrett was number one at 18.5%. Chris Jones, 17.8. This is mixing both edge and interior defenders, by the way. Trey Hendrickson, 17.2. Max Crosby, 16.8. Chase Young, 16.2. He comes in the fifth spot. Little above Jared Verse and Will McDonald, both in the upper 15.9 and 0.7%, respectively. But everybody else on the list is above 15. Nick Bonito, from Denver, Danielle Hunter in Houston, and Kyle Van Noy in, I believe he was in Baltimore last year. So you compare that to the actual top 10 by sacks, which Chase Young was not in that list. We all know that. He only had 7. The lowest on that list, number 10, was TJ Watt with 12. Trey Hendrickson and Miles Garrett and Nick Bonito all had 17. Van Noy added 16. Daniel, 15 and a half. McDonald, 14. Josh Sweat, 13.5. Jonathan Cooper, 12.5. So there is a correlation because you're talking about 6 guys made both lists. So you can't ignore when you're talking about a pressure rate um, versus the actual sack outcome. But by the same token, Jonathan Cooper, TJ Watt, Josh Sweat were not on high pressure rates. But what they all were on were teams that had pretty good pass rushes all the way around. And so maybe a little more, despite their pressure rates not being where everybody else's is, they still had the benefit of the impact play of going get the quarterback on the ground. In the case of Cooper, he's the guy opposite of Benito, so he's having a monster year and all this. Whether you're talking about the analytics side or the actual hard sack numbers, Cooper has to benefit from that, and he did obviously. So that kind of fits into scheme will make a difference. And also, some of these guys do, like TJ Watt, to be fair, does spend some time dropping off into coverage in Pittsburgh. He's not just a sole pass rusher. Plays a lot of snaps, but does a lot of things. He's an high impact player for them. So all this kind of boils into, you know, you're looking at Chase Young going, man, he is around as high as anybody on this list. And a lot of these guys, the leading sack guys in the NFL, and he's right there throwing up, I think, pretty significant number when you're talking about how close he's getting to the quarterback and how much that is affecting what the quarterback does. Just kind of, can you close it? Can you finish it off a little bit? Which kind of gets to the pass rush win rate. Also, is I think another one that's kind of, it tells you part of the story. I guess is the right way to say it. 17.5% with the Saints. Go find my list. It puts him sixth overall. Again, combining edge and interior defenders, Jones 19.6, Miles Garrett 18.5, Trey Henderson 18, Max Crosby 17.8, Jared Verse 17.6. We're seeing a lot of the same usual suspects. Will McDonald is right behind Young at 17.2, Hunter 16.8, Benito 16.5, Dexter Lawrence 16. So basically, what that is it, when you're talking win rate, it's pass rush win rate. And it's basically the same thing. You pass rush wins divided by your total pass rush snaps times 100 gives you the percent. And it's basically defined as the pass rush snaps where the defender beats their blocker within 2.5 seconds on the edge or within 2 seconds or so on the interior. So basically, it's when a defender comes out and opens up a can of whoop ass on the offensive lineman trying to block him and can lead to this pressure rate, right? And he's right there in the mix with those guys. I feel like this is the year, and the Saints came out. I think it's 3 year, $51 million deal. That just puts him more or less in the conversation where a lot of these edge rushers are getting paid around the NFL. The Saints send a message to Chase Young. Yeah, we believe, you know, you're going to convert that top 10 into the kind of key analytical numbers into a top 10 in the key impact number for your position, which is get the quarterback on the ground. Beat your blocker, get close to him. Two things that Young was doing as well as anybody in the league. Finish the deal. Get him on the ground. Totally affect him by hitting him and putting him on the ground. It's probably the best way you can affect quarterback play in the NFL, right? So he's right on the cusp. And I was very disappointed for the most part last year in Chase Young. And I really kind of thought maybe this video would have a little different tone to it than I'm ending up giving it, which is less disappointment going maybe hopeful because I do, in all fairness to Chase Young and to close out what we're going to talk about in the 2024 season, have to acknowledge two key points that I forgot about until I started kind of doing some research on this and just kind of, oh yeah, I forgot about that. No, yeah, I forgot about that. Well, the two things are one, look, coming off that neck surgery that he had last year when we signed him, missing a large chunk of um, I guess, preparation, getting ready for when he would be able to come back to the Saints in the offseason, like players should be doing on their own. And pretty sure he's one of them. And it kind of sounds like so far what we're hearing this year, he's in a better position now because he had to wait for the surgery to heal. They had to go through the rehab process and all that stuff. It's almost like a little bit of a late start. And it's not an abnormal thing for Young because one of the biggest knocks people put on him was struggling to stay healthy. And so he's had some off seasons before where that's what he was dealing with, some type of injury, possibly a surgery, rehab, kind of almost always not starting off on time with everybody else. He is this year. And I've heard some stuff a little bit here and there that he's really getting into it because that's what I said at the opening of this. I think he knows full well too. Yeah, I have to turn that into sack numbers. I have to make them impact plays. I have to go from 7 sacks to that conversation of 13, 14, where most of his peers who are doing the same thing that he is in those two categories, that's where they're finishing up. So use that to segue into what we're kind of expecting in the 2025 season. He is getting that healthy offseason. So feels like should be good to go. OTAs are starting in 2 or 3 days. I believe it's May 20th through the 22nd is the first three days of it. Need him healthy, need him there working because coaching change, new scheme change, and that could greatly benefit him also. Okay. Going through a little bit of his highlight clips that the Saints had out there, and I almost thought about cutting the video and showing it, but it's only if this is the downside of what we're talking about is it's only a few minutes long and it doesn't have a lot of plays on it. Now the ones that they do have are pretty much spectacular where you see the glimpse of him going, oh my God, it just felt like you didn't see enough of it. But what you did probably see is a lot of him pushing offensive linemen and getting in. That's the win rate and getting the quarterback, maybe affecting the play enough to get rid of the ball early, make a bad throw, something along those lines. Even if it was a completion, realizing the quarterback was having to move out of the way to keep from getting sacked and getting rid of the ball. Any combination of those things. But in the ultimate scheme of things, it still only led to 7 sacks. And the other part of that is if you go look, and I did look at his PFF numbers, and actually a lot of the defensive linemen from the Saints last year kind of fall into this category that when Aaron Rizzi was named interim and he promoted defensive line coach basically out of the coaching staff and back into the college ranks as a defensive coordinator for Oklahoma State, I believe. Um, Brian Young took over. There was immediate reaction. I remember by Cam Jordan about that. He was a little vocal about not liking what Todd Grantham was doing and loving what Young's doing. But there's a correlation that while it did not help, and we're going to finish on this in a second, in stopping the run and improving any of that, did kind of improve our pass rush. And Young, of his 7 sacks, 4 of them came after that point. 2 were in one game. I think it was Washington, but I'm not sure which one it was. But now you're looking at little spurts of a lot more productivity than he had the previous games. Prior to that, when the old coaching staff was more heavily involved on the defense. So the scheme coaching change could be a big deal for him. And he is athletic. That's one of the things, man. He's a big man at roughly 6'4, 6'5, 265. Moves incredibly well. So I think it's a pivotal part for him. What he has to do, be healthy, be ready to go. Coaching and scheme and play calling and all that other stuff is going to matter. and stopping the run. That's where you kind of end up on this. Because as a team, if we don't stop the run, then you're going to negate a lot of what he could potentially do in turning in those impact numbers on sacks. You got to get him in the passing situations first and foremost. I think the other thing that to kind of talk about here on the rub of it is, even if you do get to that point, in this, it's why I brought up the Benito Cooper situation in Denver. You got one guy that's drawing attention, somebody else has to step in there, right? Brzee or Granderson, who likely going to be the primary guy on the other side right now. But it's got to start with stopping the run. And that's also where some of the other players get in, and those interior guys, better fills from the linebacking core or anybody near the line of scrimmage in the secondary. All that helps. And all in the long run, not only going to help him, but our other pass rushers. But we're looking at him as the primary guy, right? So primarily that's what we're talking about. Got to get him going. And the other thing that can help along that lines, now this is a little less stopping the run, but also about personnel. And we talked about Asante Samuel Jr. last week. I think just one more key addition back there to kind of help your coverage out just a little bit. See if you can get that quarterback hold the ball an extra second, or kind of misread and realize, oh, where he thought he should go with the ball, he can't go because somebody is covering back there in the secondary and changing it, and pass rush is able to catch up with him before he can move on and get rid of the ball. I think little key things like that when you're talking about a guy who, again, could beat blocks and get close to the quarterback, among the best of them in the league, but just missing out on the sack total. That second split second may make all the difference in the world. And I think a little boost in the secondary. We've been trying to boost it up in free agency, and we drafted some guys. A guy like Asante Samuel Jr. or someone similar, even if it's on the back end at safety, could help make a difference. And obviously, any help he gets in pass rush or complementary the other way around, that someone else who's able to step up when he is creating that pressure and beating blocks and drawing maybe double teams, maybe running backs having to chip on his side and open it up for somebody else. That other somebody else has to come up, be there to make the play and get the quarterback on the ground. So I think overall, when you're talking about the pass rush, again, got to keep saying this, and I think this is the stop the run is first and foremost, because we were just so horrible at it. But if you get that part fixed, I think you already have, including a healthy, ready to go Chase Young, a lot of other pieces that may be able to pick up that pass rush a little bit. You may be able to see Chase Young kind of, I mean, you're paying him like he's in that upper echelon, and not quite, because some of those guys make more money than he does. But you get the point I'm making. It's like, every signal's being sent. You're the guy. You've got to go do this. At 17's got to turn to 12, 13, 14 plus. I think he can do it. And I think it can happen on this team. But just like a lot of the stuff we're talking about right now, it's a wait and see mode. Real quick, talking a little bit about OTAs also. Um, Starting this week, again, the one thing I don't want to hear about is, I'm not even going to say it, the I word. Let's please steer clear of that while we're trying to get some work in here. And now that the veterans are going to be joining in with the rookies who already had their mini camp last weekend. Interested to see or hear about it all, how Quincy Riley is doing. Really hope we can get him in there so he's not starting off too far behind. But the other two that we haven't heard a lot about, and there were some comments in the last couple of videos, Taysom Hill, how's that thing coming along? What's it looking like? There's just been kind of radio silence there, and I'm interested to see or hear anything about where they think the recovery on that leg injury is at. Could we get him back this at any point this season, or is it going to be later, if at all? How that's going to work out, I don't know if they know, and if they know, I don't know if they're going to tell us. But I'm kind of hoping we get at least some indication. And the other one being Rashid Shaheed, also. Um, I think the last I heard anything on that, it seems like he was running and getting to the point where he could possibly, I don't know if you'll see him during the off-season process, actually doing much, but could be hopefully ready to go by training camp, which would be incredibly awesome if you get him back to full strength at that point and not at some point later in the season. Hoping we get some updates on that also. So, first time here, you like what you see, hit the subscribe. Please, everyone, bang that thumbs up button. We know the algorithm loves that. Let me know what you think in the bottom. Am I drinking the Kool Aid on Chase Young? I think I am slightly, to be honest with you. But I think for the most part, you got a guy there who could and should be capable of doing what you need him to do. Get that quarterback on the ground. You know, close you can to once a game would be freaking awesome. Let's see how it plays out. So, till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.